will speak today on how the Alliance works and how its focus has been evolving over the past 7 years. The Alliance is hoping that this presentation will provide the basis for much conversation over the next 3 days and promote collaboration with other interest groups in the Rangelands to further the cause. So please welcome Kate.
Thank you, Claire. I'd like to recognise the Arrernte people on whose land we are meeting today. My name is Kate Forrest. I work with the Rangelands NRM Alliance, which some of you may or may not have heard about. There's 14 regional natural resource bodies that got together about 8 years ago. They work across 5 jurisdictions and they found that they have a lot in common and they work on this commonality. It's a good job because they do that. All right, it provides the members, all these guys and girls that work together, with a way to share information, collaborate on projects and have a greater voice than they have individually. They get to talk with their peers, which is tricky, across Australia. We have guys from Cape York right down into the Western Australian southern regions. They also can link with stakeholders and people that can give them information and research and other people that have an interest in furthering the rangelands and the natural resource management and the people of the rangelands. The work they do ranges from working together on cross-regional projects, national projects, supporting concepts of other people that we think are top-notch and will make a difference for the rangelands. We don't need to do it all ourselves. We give advice on programs and policies to the Australian and sometimes to state governments. And we deliver projects through the regional bodies, some of which you'll hear about today. I think Marianne Healy's talking about the NRM Planning for Climate Change Cluster Project, and Mike Digby and a number of others will talk about the National Spatial Hub Project. They got together recognising the similarities in where and how they work, but they still deliver locally. Over the past 2 years, the Alliance has been investigating how to increase appropriate investment in the rangelands. We began by thinking that a trust would be a good idea. It would answer all their needs. We'd get the money in, we'd decide on how it's used. It would be flexible. We'd be able to move money around as we need to because climatic conditions change or people have improved their management in that area so we can actually invest somewhere else. It seemed really easy. It seemed really easy because we hadn't talked to anyone about it. We found out it was more complicated than that. We needed, and basically all the information that we got from people who'd been involved with trusts told us that you really need a policy and a governance system to suit it. The episodic funding that Fred Chaney talked about was going to be a big problem. So we had no idea how big that bag of worms was. But we've opened it and now we have to keep going. We've learnt some things and we've hit a few stumbling blocks. But we'd like to talk to you today and then have you talk to us about a concept of collaborative policy and investment advice. Now, I don't know where it came from, but policy has a bad reputation for being a bit dull. So it's not really done in exciting and interesting ways. So to try to avoid boring you and myself, I'm going to use an analogy as to why focused investment and policy is important. I'm going to use the trusty, humble, three-legged barbecue, the high point of portable barbecue technology. Here's my take on how it represents good policy, and then, hence, investment. The 3 legs I like to think of as the social, economic and environmental components of policy. They hold things up. The plate is where the work gets done. It's where things are produced. The gas is the people. And yes, some people will go, well, not everyone's as full of hot air as you, but, you know, nothing gets done without them. They're vital. We can have as much policy and as much plate on the top to get things done, but if you don't have people, you've got nothing. And all is well while the barbecue's balanced. Everyone gets a snag. There may be a few bits, the odd raw snag. Every once in a while you might not be as balanced as you want to be, but you can always fix it by chucking a coaster under the dodgy leg. However, problems start when the barbecue gets really skew-whiff. You've popped it on the hill, you may not have been sober when you did it, and all of a sudden the sausages start rolling off. All the energy of the people is wasted. It's used inefficiently. And what is produced becomes less for everyone involved. As a general rule, the dogs end up with the sausages. An example of this for me, I was trying to think of one so you don't think I'm just analogies, is what happened in Western Queensland, where a lack of investment and resources in wild dog management at all levels resulted in a natural resource issue which has had large effects on the economic and social well-being of the community. In this case, it literally went to the dogs. That's not funny. The Alliance, therefore, wants to be involved in improving investment and policy in a balanced way, but we're not experts in everything. We'd like to think we are, but we're not. We spoke with a number of people who have been working in different policy areas, and the messages we got were interesting and not quite what we expected. We did, unfortunately, not come up with a silver bullet, which was disappointing. But, like Barry has alluded to, our profile is low. The understanding of how things work out here and what needs to be done is low, and the uptake of ideas is slow. So the message gets lost, and it gets lost for a number of reasons, which are different to what I thought, which is that, you know, we have a very complex system and all those sorts of things. Everyone has a complex system. The first one is that rangeland management messages have been saying the same thing for a long time. That doesn't mean that they're saying the wrong things, but it means that they don't catch people's eyes. So I had a look at a whole bunch of reports going back from the modern outback through Dry Times, Mark Stafford Smith, our own Alliance initiative, strategies, draft strategies, principles and other reports, the whole and the heart. They nearly all say very similar things. We need policy and governance that works nationally but is delivered locally. The same people are saying the same things. So we talked to a number of people who have been trying to influence policies that affect the rangelands for quite a while in a whole different range of areas. And a number of them said, it'd be great if you could pick this up because I'm seen as 1, old, 2, academic, or 3, flawed simply because I've been pushing the same idea for 20 years. 3, there's a lot of corporate memory in government and investment agencies around the rangelands. There's no coherent entity. I didn't have that term. Obviously, I've stolen it from Fred. It's difficult for agencies to get structured advice. Because there isn't a department, there's no coherent entity. There's not even a branch. In fact, there's not a rangelands officer in Canberra. They get their advice from different interest groups. So the pastoral industry, the conservation industry, the natural resource management bodies, all of us go in and we like to give them the answers, and we think if we give them the answers, they'll give us the money. I'm not sure how successful we've been, to be honest. And 5, it's difficult to give structured advice on the rangelands, as we tend to only hit the Canberra psyche in times of crisis, when the response is pretty similar to this. Okay, what? Shit, quick, give us answers. This applied to a number of areas, and I'm behind times. Okay, so what we're thinking is that we'd like to become that corporate memory and structured advice. The Alliance members discussed options. One was to go it alone, write our own policies and then defend them. By competing with other lobby groups, spruiking their ideas, quite possibly very good ideas, and dare I say it, possibly better than ours. But in a competitive setting, no room for working with the opposition, not in tune with the way the Alliance works. So we see an opportunity to provide the corporate memory and structured advice, but we can only really do that if we collaborate with other interested parties. We're interested in setting up forums, a way to work together with other industry groups, government agencies, and to work on policies to provide government and other investors with structured advice. So in a way, we're providing the corporate memory that we so malign is missing. Action through collaboration. We may not engender this kind of devotion, and in fact, on now looking at that picture on this screen, I'm a little worried that the guy's a dictator, and that's not really what we're after at all. The proposal is that we work with other interested parties to develop rangelands appropriate investment and policy. We've obviously spoken with Pew, who have resources to promote the outback and the profile. It seems as if we're able to get a range of stakeholders together and agree on certain areas and priorities for policy and investment, that we could then have things that we could go to Canberra with and say, this is what we agree on. We can fight around the edges as much as we like, but it feels like this was important. We haven't got a set process in mind or even a straight down the line direction. We're not saying go all down economic development. Don't just go for sustainable. We want the rangelands to be here, we want the people to be in here, and we want them to thrive. We want them to thrive for the benefit of Australia. We want a balanced barbecue. Nobody wants the dog to get the snags. So come and talk to us. We will be hanging around. Thank you very much for listening to me. And we're just looking for input on how we can make this stuff happen. Finally, I'd say, don't write off strange bedfellows. You never know where inspiration may come from.
Thank you, Kate. Time for a couple of questions. So if anyone has a question for Kate, put your hand up. The microphone will come your way.
Hi Kate, my name's Amber. Thank you for that, and I think you've got excellent ideas and a big challenge ahead of you by the sounds of it. My question is, how do your 14 groups all communicate now, and are there opportunities to leverage what you're already doing as well as extend whatever communication strategies you've got in place?
Yeah, so 14 regions communicate individually, but they tend to communicate the same sort of information. But they also tend to communicate and work with the projects that they're involved with for their region, and they the stuff that we put up to Canberra goes through the Alliance as a general rule. It allows them to put their ideas in together, and we can go and talk as 80% of the country, which is sometimes an advantage but is sometimes overwhelming for people in Canberra to deal with. And that's when we explain that, well, actually, you're supporting the natural resource management bodies who have the local connections to make this stuff happen.
I guess also the question that I was hoping to ask was about the mechanism that you use. Like, how do you actually exchange information?
Within the Alliance?
Yeah, within the Alliance, and then how do you get all that together and then take it to...
Okay, we do it mainly by email currently. We're about to get a website, which will be great. But yeah, so we mainly work by email. I collate all their information and they check it through, and we use that information. Yep.
I did say 2 questions, but she who must be obeyed has said only one. So will you thank Kate Forrest, please?